Hi guys, it's Mr. Jackson here to read chapter 36 of Everwild by Neal Shusterman with permission from Simon and Schuster. Chapter 36, The Intolerable Nexus of Extremes. Graceland had a faint but perpetual smell of peanut butter and bananas. Even better now with chocolate, offered Zinn, as she and Nick stepped inside. From the moment Nick arrived, he knew there was something odd about the world-famous tourist attraction. The floors were both soft and solid at the same time, and everywhere he looked, Nick saw double. He wanted to chalk it up to his own failing vision, but he knew it was more than that. "What is this, some sort of fun house?" asked Zinn. But Nick suspected there was no fun to be had for anyone but the tourists. This is a vortex, Nick realized. He sensed it would be wise to leave, but he said he would meet Mary here, and he wouldn't go back on his word. He had come with a team of afterlights, but told them to wait outside, and he went in with Zinn. They moved through rooms that alternated between elegant and absurd, and the air was filled with the faint echoes of 1,000 parties. Of course, all the living heard was "Love Me Tender," pumped in through the speaker system, but they were beginning to notice an uncanny aroma of chocolate. Toward the back of the mansion, Nick and Zinn found the infamous jungle room, full of leopard and zebra-skinned furniture and green shag carpeting, not just on the floor, but on the ceiling, too. They waited for Mary. Nick didn't feel well at all, and this was troubling because you couldn't feel sick in Everlost. Yet, there was a fever burning within him, rising from the deepest part of his soul, radiating out. Zinn nervously doodled on her prop notepad to pass the time. What if she don't come? "She'll come," said Nick. When all the clocks in the house struck 5 and Mary hadn't arrived, Nick began to worry. Mary was never late, and with each passing minute, Nick felt worse. "She's not coming," said Zinn. "Let's get out of this place. It gives me the creeps. She'll be here." Nick's fever peaked, and then it finally broke. He began to sweat, but as he tried to wipe it away, he realized it wasn't perspiration he was sweating. It was chocolate. "Please let her come soon," he thought. Nick had arrived 20 minutes early. Mary arrived 10 minutes late. She approached Graceland alone with no outward fear, but she could not deny that inwardly she was terrified. Not fear of Graceland, but fear of her own reaction when she saw Nick. The plan, she thought. Stick to the plan. Speedo had his part. Milos and the Skinjactors had theirs. And so did she. Mary comforted herself in knowing that she had the moral high ground over Nick, which meant that if there was any justice in the universe, she would be properly rewarded for her efforts today. 20 of Nick's afterlights stood outside the Graceland mansion, looking at the troublesome way it shifted in and out of focus. As Mary approached, they parted, staring at her in awe and in fear. But she only smiled at them. "Take heart," she told them. "Whatever your worries, I promise things will be better for you from now on." Then she walked into the vortex. The overall decor of the mansion did not suit Mary's taste. The last dwindling groups of tourists moved about the place on guided tours. Mary ignored them and followed the scent of chocolate to a garish African-themed room where she found Nick waiting. She had to fight the urge to run to him, shake him, hug him, hit him. No! She had to maintain a cool distance or she would never be able to bear the burden of this crucial hour. Then she realized Nick wasn't alone. A grungy afterlight in a Confederate uniform stood beside him, notepad in hand. Notepad in hand, holding the pencil the way a monkey might hold a spoon. Mary wasn't fooled. She knew about the Ripper. In fact, this was one of the reasons Mary had come. Nick's sense of honor would put him at a distinct disadvantage, for he would never have the Ripper attack a lone, defenseless girl, she hoped. Nick stood when he saw her, and she took a good look at him. It was, as she suspected, the chocolate had spread, consuming his thoughts and thus his body. Calling him the chocolate ogre had done its damage, and now it had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Most of him was covered in it now. Only an arm and a third of his face remained clear, but the skin was already turning moist and darkening. It was the effect of the vortex. All she had to do was stall, and she would defeat him without lifting a finger. You brought this on yourself, Nick, she wanted to say, but couldn't bring herself to. Hello, Mary. Hello, Nick. She still loved him deeply, but as she looked at him now, she recoiled, feeling her love curdle into pity. Seeing him in this decrepit state allowed her to tell herself that Nick was gone, and all that remained was the chocolate ogre, a creature that needed to be put out of its misery. It was easier now to keep her distance. What shall we say to each other, Nick? How about good to see you? He said, his voice raspy and thick, barely humid. He coughed a thick, liquid rattle. Yes, said Mary, and it is good to see you. Truly. Mary could feel the effect of the vortex herself, but she knew she would not have to endure it as long as Nick. That's why she came late. Yet, its effect was different on her. She did not feel weighed down, but enlightened. She actually felt stronger. I've missed you, Nick said. Have you? Is that why you continue to be a thorn in my side? Are you a little boy with a crush seeking attention? His chocolate oozed a little darker. Mary sighed. I've missed you too, she admitted. Nick shrugged, a little bit awkward in the moment. I'd reach out and hold you, but I might dirty your perfect dress. Mary sadly shook her head. It shouldn't be this way between us, Nick. Why must you rally against me so? The same reason you fight me. Just like you, I have to do what I believe is right, and freeing kids from this place is the right thing to do. We are here to build Everlost, not empty it. How can you be so smart and so wrong? Mary closed her eyes, resigned that there would be no last-minute salvation for Nick. He would never see things her way. Coming here tonight, she said, was the first right thing you've done in a long time. Nick shifted, and she could see his left shoulder sag, beginning to lose human shape. She wanted to look away, but instead she watched it happen. because she knew witnessing this was part of her personal penance for having trusted Nick in the first place. "If you have a peace proposal, let's hear it," said Nick, his voice sounding less human by the moment. Mary shook her head. "There is no proposal," she told him. "I will not compromise my integrity for you. Every afterlife in Everlost deserves the peace and comfort that I have to give. I will not sacrifice a single one for a treaty with you." "Then why are you here?" Mary smiled in grim triumph. "To accept your unconditional surrender, of course. Right now, my children are storming your train and taking your army prisoner. There will be no one for you to return to, Nick. I've already won." From where Nick stood, Mary was just as beautiful, just as powerful as she ever was. Perhaps even more so, for it seemed this place magnified both her beauty and her powerful presence. But in a moment, she would deflate. A little boy with a crush. Is that what she thought? Now, he took guilty pleasure in the look of despair that would soon be filling that beautiful face. "Your children are going to have a surprise," he told her. "You have 200 afterlights. I have 400. My army will capture them, hand them coins, and for a second time, your children will be set free. But thank you for sending them to the train. It makes it easier that way." Mary's reaction was not what Nick expected. She tossed back her hair and shifted her shoulders in proud defiance. "Oh, but Nick, I think you misunderstood. As I said, I have more than 200 afterlights, and I didn't lie." Then she smiled a terrible smile. "I have 1,000. "That's certainly more than 200, isn't it?" As the words hit him, he realized what it meant. His own will began to collapse. She had 1,000 souls. She would handily defeat his army. Now, the pressure inside of him, the pressure he had been holding back since stepping into the vortex, could no longer be held. He felt a dam inside him rupture. His vision blurred and went dark. He felt everything begin to dissolve as the last bit of him gave in to the sickly sweet cancer. What began as a small stain on his face was now all that remained of him. "Now, sir?" asked Zinn. "Should I do it now?" Yes, that was it. Although he might not have his victory against her children, maybe he could still have his victory against her. "I give you a gift, Mary," he tried to say, just as he did in his fantasy, but he could no longer speak the words, for his mouth could only make a moaning sound like a cave in the wind. Before his thoughts could become too muddled, he sent Zinn forward. "Now," he tried to say. And she must have understood, because Zinn lunged toward Mary, grabbed her by the shoulders, and began to push. Mary had thought she had a contingency for everything. In her mind, the Ripper was a minor threat, a nuisance at best. Let the Ripper steal whatever she wants from me, Mary thought. I'll survive. But the moment the Ripper began to push, Mary realized that she had miscalculated. There was a tingling in the back of her head unlike anything she had ever felt before. It moved down across her face to her shoulders as the Ripper pushed her backwards. What was happening to her? The Ripper wasn't ripping at all. Mary opened her mouth and gasped. She actually gasped, drawing in a breath of air like a living, breathing person would. And then it finally dawned on her exactly what the Ripper was doing. She was pushing Mary into the living world. How could that be? Was such a thing possible? She didn't want to find out, so she fought back, grabbing this horrible child. Mary tried to pull herself back into Everlost. Zin had never felt so strong. She knew it was the vortex helping her. The vortex had made opening a portal into the living world as easy as slicing butter, and Mary was sliding on through until Mary began to fight back. As strong as Graceland made Zin, its effect on Mary was even more intense. Mary's greatest asset had always been the sheer force of her will. Now her will was horribly amplified, and Mary did not want to be alive. "This will not happen," Mary asserted, her voice loud and echoing in both worlds. "I will not be forced out." The commanding sound of Mary's voice sucked away Zin's strength. Mary was halfway into the real world, but she dug her heels in, and each time she spoke, Zin felt weaker. "I will not be forced out of Everlost." Inch by inch, Mary pulled herself back through the portal. "I will not be beaten by a sniveling, illiterate fool." "Help!" Zin cried to Nick. "Sir, I need your help." But Nick was not himself. He was barely anything at all. He was a lumbering, boneless mask. His fingers were dissolving until there was not enough of him to reach out, until there was not enough of him to know why he'd even want to. "Help me," Zin cried. "What is this all about?" thought Nick. "Why am I here? What's happening? I have to stop and think." So he crawled away into a corner, leaving bits of him behind as he went. "I can't do this alone," yelled Zin. "What is that commotion over there? It has to stop so I can think. If only I can clear my mind. I know why I'm here. I know who I am." And so the dissolving spirit closed its eyes and melted into a corner, spiraling down into the bittersweet darkness of its own thoughts, trying to find something to grasp onto that wasn't chocolate. In a moment, he was gone, and a layer of chocolate slowly spilled out across the floor like a lava flow, burying the green shag carpet. Nick had lost, and now Zin was losing too. Mary had pulled herself back through the portal into Everlost, and although Zin still grabbed at her, trying to push, it was useless. There was no way she could fight against the monumental force of Mary Hightower's overwhelming presence. Mary pulled the last of her head through, and behind her the portal began to close. She grabbed Zin by the front of her uniform. "You will be rehabilitated," Mary bellowed, her will still magnified. "You will learn to use your powers for good. You will learn to use them for me." Mary took a step forward, but something snagged in her hair. She tried to pull free, but whatever it was pulled back, hard enough to make her chin jut upward. And all of a sudden, she felt a tingling sensation in her head again. She began to lose her balance, falling backward, and in front of her, the Ripper lunged at her once more. Allie had soul-surfed her way back to Graceland as quickly as she could, but it wasn't fast enough. She arrived too late to save Nick, but she could not let herself mourn what had happened to him. The only way she could help him now was to finish the job he'd begun. She didn't understand what was going on until Mary had pulled herself back into Everlost from the living world. Had Mary been alive? As in flesh and blood alive? Well, at least the top half of her had been. This kid in the gray uniform had done it somehow, but now the hole into the living world was closing. Neither of them had seen Allie lurking there. Good. Quickly, she skin-jacked a female security guard coming into the room. From a living world point of view, the jungle room seemed perfectly normal, except for an overpowering smell of chocolate and a shrinking hole in the mid-air the size of a grapefruit. Through that hole, Allie could see the back of Mary's head. So, Allie took her fleshie out and reached through the hole into Everlost, grabbing Mary's hair, and she began to tug with all her might. As she pulled, Mary fought like a shark on the end of a line, but she had lost her balance. Allie pulled again. "Let me go!" Mary demanded. Her will was almost strong enough to send Allie flying away from her, so Allie twisted her hand, making sure her fingers were snagged and knotted in Mary's long copper hair, unable to be freed no matter how Mary worked against her. Then Allie added her other hand as well, pulling her hair like it was tug of war. There were two of them working against Mary now, Allie pulling and Zinn pushing. But it still wasn't enough. Then, suddenly, there was a third hand in Mary's hair, and a hand pulling on her chin, and two hands grabbed her by the armpits, yet somehow all those hands were Allie's. She had skin-jacked a guard, but two tourists had come into the room as well, and Allie was now seeing things through three different sets of eyes. The intolerable nexus of extremes had a different effect on every afterlife, and now Allie wasn't just skinjacking a single person. She was skinjacking three at the same time, and all three of them had a single purpose: to pull Mary Hightower out of Everlost and into the world of the living. This will not happen! But for all her will, for all her fury, Mary could not fight that many foes. As the tingling passed through her chest, her waist, and down her legs, she knew that there was no stopping this. But if she was going, she was not going alone. She grabbed onto the Ripper with hands as tight as claws and pulled on her. Both of them slid through into the living world. Zinn was so focused on pushing Mary, she had no idea what had happened to her until she finally let go and looked around. The strange double vision view of Graceland was gone. The chocolate flood was gone. Mary stood across a room in shock. One tourist suddenly fainted, and the other tourist screamed at the top of her lungs, ran up the stairs. The guard who had first helped Zinn now stared at Mary in disbelief. Zinn turned around to see the portal shrink down to nothing and vanished. She reached out a hand and tried to create a fresh portal back into Everlost, but the living have no such powers. She was no longer a Ripper. She was just a living human girl. She knew, not just because of what she saw, and not just because it hurt when she pinched herself. She knew because for the first time in 150 years, her cap fell off her head and tumbled to the ground. "What have you done?" Mary glared at her with such raw hatred. It chilled Zinn's newly formed blood. So Zinn ran and didn't stop running until she was far from Graceland. Allie had released two of her fleshies, one fainting in shock, the other screaming as she ran. But Allie held on to the guard, keeping a close eye on Mary. Mary's hair was wild. Her green dress wrinkled, and she was out of breath from the ordeal. Mary Hightower out of breath. What a wonderful concept. Allie couldn't contain her smile. A tour guide raced down, responding to all the communication. He didn't even see the tourist who had passed out behind a zebra skin couch. "What's going on here? Candace. Don't worry, said Allie, feeling authoritative in her guard uniform. I'll take care of this. Go find out what that woman was screaming about. Who are you? Mary demanded once the tour guide was gone. Don't you recognize me, Mary? It's your good friend Allie the Outcast. Although it looks like you're the one who's outcast now. Then Allie realized something with far too much glee. Now that you're here, alive and all, there's something I wanted to do for a very long time. Then Allie reached back, curled her fleshy's right hand into a fist, and swung it towards Mary with all her might. This was one strong fleshy. The punch connected with Mary's eye so hard that Mary's entire body spun around and she collapsed into a leopard chair. Allie's knuckles hurt, but it was a good kind of pain. My eye, Mary wailed. Oh, my eye! It was the first pain Megan Mary McGill had felt in more than 100 years. She brought her hands to her face, but it hurt even to touch it. She felt she would die from the pain, and she wished that she would, so she could be free from this horribly limited body. I'm alive, Mary thought. Heaven help me, I'm alive. There was no greater hell for Mary than to be bound to a flesh-filled hell on earth. Allie prepared to peel back into Everlost, but before she could, a man grabbed her by the throat and pushed her against the wall. It was the tourist who had fainted. I should never have freed you. So much trouble you have become. Milos. He had found her, but he was too late. Before you strangle this poor fleshy, Allie said, why don't you have a look at your fearless leader? Milos turned to see Mary, and he was stunned. Milos, is that you in there? Mary, her eye already starting to swell, stood to gather what composure she had. This is only a small setback. You have to go through with the plan. Nothing has changed. Milos just stared at her, still trying to take it in. But look at you. Everything has changed. No, insisted Mary. You'll have to take care of my children for a while, but I'll work this out. I will. I'll work it out. Allie knew she should have taken this moment to escape, but watching Mary Hightower sink into absolute desperation was mesmerizing. I can still work from this side, Mary insisted. I think you fool yourself, said Milos. No, I can make this work. I know I can. Please, Milos. And Mary fell to her knees, a gesture so foreign for her, Allie could only stare. Please don't leave me like this. I'm begging you, Milos. Please don't leave me. There were tears in her face now. Real human tears. Milos reached out his fleshy's hand and wiped away her tears. Your children do need you, Milos said thoughtfully. We will see. Then he whispered something into Mary's ear that Allie couldn't hear. Whatever he said, it calmed Mary down. She nodded a glum acceptance. Then Milos turned to Allie, and she realized she had waited too long. Allie could leap into another fleshy and run, but there were none in the room, other than the ones she and Milos had already skin-jacked. Then something occurred to Allie. Mary was now a fleshy. Did she dare do it? Did she dare skinjack Mary Hightower, the self-appointed queen of Everlost? Of course. In fact, she couldn't resist. As Milos came at her, she leapt from the guard and directly into the flesh of Mary Hightower. Mary knew the instant it happened. She could feel Allie picking through her brain. She felt herself infected by this filthy, filthy girl. Get out! Mary demanded, and even though she was no longer an afterlight, The force of her will was still strong enough to hit Allie like a mortar blast. Allie recoiled and was ejected out of her, but not before seeing the depths of Mary's mind. And what she saw there, the plans, the schemes, the terrible things that would happen if Mary had her way, it was like witnessing Armageddon itself. And what made it all the more horrifying was that Mary truly believed it was all in the service of good. More than ever, Allie knew that Mary must be stopped. But the force of her expulsion from Mary's blood had rattled her and made her weak enough for Milos to grab her. They were both back in Everlost now. She was looking at him, not a fleshy, but Milos himself, and his expression was stone. You have made life very interesting, haven't you? Allie tried to pull free, but she was too weak now. You're not going anywhere but with me, Milos told her. In case you forgot, you made me a promise, and you're going to keep it. Then he pulled her out of Graceland, and she didn't have the strength to resist. Ooh, man, that was pretty cool. What did you think of this chapter? So, some stuff I want to talk about. The characters in this do some pretty extreme things. It's like when we are really, really passionate about something and when we really, really believe in something, we are stronger than we know. And these characters are all stronger than they know. Allie can suddenly skinjack more than one person at a time. Sin makes a pretty big sacrifice. Mary's strength is really heightened, and Nick, although he melts into chocolate, he's really still at a point of being with himself. He's still there. He says, I know who I am. And it's surprising, or maybe not surprising, what they believe in, but I think that they're all really, really confronting their values. And I'm wondering, what are the values that you hold really strongly? What is the thing that you really, really believe in your heart, in your soul, that would cause you to just have extra strength, to have more strength than you even knew you had? Is it your family? Is it maybe your faith? Is it a cause that you believe in? Is it equality? Is it justice? Is it your friends? Is it your education? What is it that you believe in so strongly that more strength than you know would just come out of you to fight for it? Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it at that for that. What is your deepest value that you would just surprise yourself and do big things to stand up for? Yeah. I'll keep mine to myself. And you can keep yours to yourself, or if you want to, you could talk about it with your family or your friends. Or maybe write about it. Maybe write about it in your journal or draw some pictures about it. Yeah. We're getting close to the end. That was chapter 36, and 37 is next. There are, let's see, we're like really, really, really close to being done. We've just got a few pages left. I think there's like 1 or 2 more chapters, so I'm excited to finish this. I'm excited to see what happens in the next book and get started. Bye.